The Black Death, a devastating pandemic, swept across Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa in the mid-14th century. This deadly outbreak, which is believed to have originated in the arid plains of Central Asia, traveled along the Silk Road, reaching the Crimea by 1343. From there, it was carried by fleas living on the black rats that were regular passengers on merchant ships. This catastrophic event, believed to have been caused by the bubonic plague, wiped out a significant portion of the world's population. The symptoms were gruesome and swift, with victims experiencing fever, vomiting, and painful swellings called buboes. Death often followed within days. It left behind a trail of death, despair, and profound societal change. Entire towns were decimated, and the social fabric of communities was torn apart. The sheer scale of mortality led to labor shortages, which in turn caused economic upheaval. The Black Death arrived in Europe in 1347, carried by merchant ships sailing from the east. These ships brought not only goods but also the deadly plague, which quickly spread through the bustling ports and into the heart of Europe. Within a few years, it had spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the continent. The speed and extent of the spread were unprecedented, facilitated by the movement of armies, traders, and pilgrims. The plague's arrival marked a turning point in European history, forever altering the social, economic, and cultural landscape. The traditional feudal system began to crumble as serfs and peasants, now in short supply, demanded better conditions and wages. Its impact was so profound that it continues to fascinate and horrify us centuries later. The Black Death not only decimated populations, but also left a lasting legacy in art, literature, and collective memory. In this exploration of the Black Death, we will delve into its devastating consequences, examining how it reshaped medieval society and left an indelible mark on the course of human history. We will uncover the stories of those who lived through it and the ways in which it transformed the world forever. To truly understand the Black Death's impact, we must first understand the world it transformed. The 14th century was a time of great change and upheaval in Europe, setting the stage for the dramatic events that would follow. Medieval Europe in the 14th century was a world vastly different from our own. It was a time when the landscape was dominated by vast stretches of farmland, dense forests, and imposing castles that stood as symbols of power and protection. Society was rigidly hierarchical, with the Catholic Church wielding immense power and influence. The Church was not just a religious institution, but a central part of daily life, influencing everything from politics to education. Feudalism, a system of land ownership and obligation, dictated social relations. Lords owned the land, and in return for protection and the right to live on it, peasants or serfs worked the land and provided goods and services. Peasants worked the land for their lords, providing them with food and labor in exchange for protection. Their lives were hard, filled with long hours of labor and little personal freedom. Life, for most people, revolved around agriculture. The seasons dictated the rhythm of life, with planting, tending, and harvesting crops being the primary activities. Cities were small by today's standards, and trade, while growing, was not as central to the economy as it would later become. Markets were local, and most people rarely traveled far from their homes. Religion permeated every aspect of life, offering both comfort and a framework for understanding the world. The Church provided a sense of community and stability in a time of uncertainty. People lived in close proximity to each other, both in rural villages and crowded towns, a factor that would contribute to the rapid spread of the plague. The dense living conditions and lack of medical knowledge made the population particularly vulnerable to disease. The Black Death, primarily caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, spread through flea bites. These fleas lived on rodents, particularly black rats, which were common in medieval towns and ships. Once a person was infected, the disease manifested in different forms, the most common being bubonic plague. Victims experienced swollen lymph nodes, fever, chills, and excruciating pain. Without treatment, death often occurred within days. The plague's rapid spread created widespread panic and fear. People were dying in the streets, their bodies left unburied. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and doctors, lacking an understanding of the disease, were powerless to stop it. The sheer scale of death was unlike anything Europe had ever seen. Estimates suggest that the Black Death killed between 30 and 60% of Europe's population, with some areas experiencing even higher mortality rates. The Black Death's most immediate social impact was the decimation of the population. Entire villages were wiped out and the death toll was staggering. This catastrophic loss of life had far-reaching consequences. With so many dead, the old social order began to crumble. The once thriving communities were now ghost towns, and the infrastructure of feudal society was severely weakened. The feudal system, which had defined medieval life for centuries, was profoundly shaken. Lords and nobles found themselves without the labor force they had relied upon for generations. The shortage of laborers gave peasants more bargaining power. They could now negotiate better terms for their work, something that was previously unthinkable. They were in high demand, and they knew it. This newfound confidence among the peasantry began to shift the balance of power. Peasants could demand higher wages or better working conditions from desperate lords. This was a radical change from the rigid hierarchical structure that had previously dominated. Some peasants even abandoned their feudal obligations altogether, seeking new opportunities in towns and cities. This migration further eroded the feudal system. This shift in power dynamics challenged the very foundations of feudalism. Nobles, who once held unchallenged authority, now faced resistance and demands from those they had previously controlled. The Black Death also led to increased social mobility. People who survived found themselves in a world with fewer people and more opportunities. With so many vacancies in the social hierarchy, opportunities arose for those who survived. Skilled laborers and craftsmen were particularly in demand. Individuals could move into positions previously unattainable to them, leading to a degree of social fluidity that had been absent before. This period marked the beginning of significant social and economic transformations. Section 5. Economic transformation from scarcity to opportunity. The Black Death's economic impact was just as profound as its social impact. Initially, the plague caused widespread economic disruption. Trade networks were disrupted as cities and towns were quarantined. Agricultural production plummeted as fields lay fallow due to lack of laborers. The deaths of skilled artisans and craftsmen created shortages in many industries. However, over time, the Black Death also created new economic opportunities. The scarcity of labor led to higher wages for those who could work. Land became more readily available, as estates were abandoned or inherited by fewer heirs. This abundance of resources, coupled with a diminished workforce, fostered innovation and efficiency. To Section 6. Artistic responses, death and renewal in the wake of plague. The Black Death had a profound impact on art and literature. The immense suffering and death it caused became central themes in artistic expression. Paintings and sculptures depicted the Grim Reaper, skeletons and other macabre imagery, reflecting the pervasive presence of death in people's lives. Literature, too, grappled with the plague's horrors. Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron, a collection of novellas set against the backdrop of the Black Death in Florence, explored themes of love, death, and human resilience. Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, while written slightly later, reflected the social and religious anxieties of a world still reeling from the plague's impact. Section 7. Religious shifts, challenging faith and seeking meaning. The Black Death shook people's faith to its core. The indiscriminate nature of the plague, claiming the lives of saints and sinners alike, led many to question the existence of a benevolent God. Some sought solace in extreme piety, engaging in self-flagellation and other forms of religious penance in an attempt to appease God's wrath. Others, disillusioned with the Church's inability to provide answers or relief, turned to alternative forms of spirituality, such as mysticism or heresy. The Black Death, in many ways, sowed the seeds of religious doubt and dissent that would later contribute to the Protestant Reformation. Section 8. The Black Death's legacy, shaping modernity. The Black Death, despite its horrors, had a lasting impact on the course of Western civilization. The decline of feudalism and the rise of a more market-oriented economy paved the way for the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. The plague's devastation also spurred advancements in medicine and public health. While rudimentary by today's standards, quarantine measures and efforts to improve sanitation were implemented in some areas. Moreover, the Black Death left an indelible mark on the human psyche. It served as a stark reminder of human mortality and the fragility of life. Its echoes can be seen in art, literature, and cultural practices even today. The Black Death remains a haunting reminder of the devastating power of pandemics and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Section 9, Conclusion, Echoes of a Pandemic. The Black Death was a cataclysmic event that reshaped Europe and left an enduring legacy on the world. Its impact was felt not just in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic, but for centuries to come. From the decline of feudalism to the rise of new economic systems, from the questioning of religious dogma to the artistic expressions of death and renewal, the Black Death left its mark on every facet of human existence. Understanding this transformative period in history provides valuable insights into the complexities of pandemics and their ability to reshape societies in profound and unexpected ways.